Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into part 2 of the SIP Winter 2021-2022 update. So here we go again, it's time to bring you another second part of another winter update. So of course we did part 1 of this SIP winter update yesterday on Sunday, looking at things like solar activity, sea surface temperature, knowledge, what's happening for ENSO, Southern Oscillation Index, Eurasian snow cover, long section on Eurasian snow cover this week. See how we're doing with the snow advance across Siberia. So if you have not yet seen part 1 of this SIP winter update, then please check it out, have a look, and it is pretty interesting watch. So thank you so much everybody for doing that. This is part 2, as I say, of the SIP winter update, and this is the analog side of the update. We're going to bring you more September data. Of course, we started looking at September data last week. We're going to finish off looking at September data this week, and then for next week, for the 7th update, we will move on, and I'll tell you about that at the end of this video. But yeah, please like, share, subscribe, and I hope you're enjoying the winter updates. Can you believe we are nearly halfway through now our winter updates? We've got 13 penciled in, so 13 weeks worth, so we're nearly there, nearly halfway through, and once we reach halfway point, then we are reaching the business end of the updates, and we've had a lot of fun with these updates so far, but it will be time to start getting, extra serious with these before too much longer, but still time for a little bit of fun. And so I'm going to bring you the SIP winter update part 2 in a second. Just to say, the first video released today was our 7 AM broadcast. We've also released a 10 to 14 day as well with all the regular features. Please check out those 2 videos if you have not yet done so. And if you want to locate part 1 of the SIP winter update, indeed this update or any winter updates, then check out winter updates playlist on the GavsWeatherVids YouTube homepage. Have a look at that, and that'll be absolutely fantastic if you can do that. I'd like to say thank you so much to Richard for the amazing winter updates gift. Thank you so much, Rich, for the gift. Incredible. I love this year's winter updates. The gift looks so frosty and seasonable, doesn't it? So thank you so much to Richard Shaw for the winter updates gift. Of course, thank you so much to Shrine as well. Thank you so much to Shrine Bruin for getting all of the relevant years together for this update. Thank you to Richard, and thank you so much to Shrine. So as I said, we're going to carry on looking at September data. That's what we looked at for part 2 of the 5th winter update. More this week. Last week we looked at CET temperature data. This week we're looking at precipitation data. We can't look at anything in terms of sunshine. Nothing much interesting, happening from a sunshine perspective. So this will be the final set of analogues, that deal with September to winter data, and we're looking at England Wales precipitation. So let's move over to the England Wales precipitation page from the UK Met and have a look then. Let's have a look. Right, so England Wales, I'm so sorry everybody. England Wales precipitation range or page goes all the way back to 1766. Can you believe that? It's one of the longest and oldest, most reliable rainfall records anywhere on Earth. If we come down through the centuries and through the decades, we arrive here at the very bottom at 2021. And we can see that September 2021 had an England Wales precipitation of 67.8 millimeters. Actually wasn't particularly dry, but it did look one time as though this would be an exceptionally dry September. It did not turn out like that due to the wet weather that we had in the closing week, especially in the closing days of the month. So you see, for example, in 2014, that really was an exceptionally dry September with an England Wales precipitation of just 16.4 millimeters. This one was much wetter in the end than 2014, but at one time it did look as though September 2021 would be an exceptionally dry September, but it was not. Right, so anyway, dealing with the winter, we're going to be looking for this set of analogues at winters following September's with an England Wales precipitation range of 65 to 72 millimeters. That, of course, places September 2021 slap bang in the middle of that range. Here we go then. So our first winter is going to be 1850-1851. This one has above average heights, high pressure to our east, and below average heights, low pressure to our west. This is a relatively anticyclonic winter, probably quite a dry winter. And, you know, for the era, probably quite a cold winter. But if that happened now, that would be a mild winter. Because, of course, we don't get the smogs and that they would have had back then in the middle of the Victorian era. So yeah, what we actually finish up with, if that happened now, would be a dry and mild winter. But back then, it was probably quite a dry and cold winter, I would have thought. Our next winter is going to be 1853-1854. This one does look a little bit more definitively colder. We've got more in way of higher pressure above average heights, which is extrapolating back to higher pressure to our north and northwest, below average heights to our south and southeast, and income with that wind from an east or northeast direction. That does look like it could be a rather colder and more wintry type winter. Our next winter is going to be 1873-1874. This is a dry, mild winter again, with above average height centred right over top of UK and Ireland. Lots of low pressure to the north. Jet streams pushing northwards as well. Dry and mild. Of course, back then you would have to consider there might be fog and smogs going on with the anticyclone. But overall, if that occurred now, that would be a dry, mild winter. We've got 1884, 1885, which just looks very, very wet. Big area of below average heights, low pressure right over top of the UK, Ireland and Western Europe. So I don't think there's much doing in terms of cold weather with that one, but I think it's an exceptionally wet winter for 1884, 1885. Next up, we have 1886, 1887. This one's a little bit cold. It's not a classic cold winter, really, and it's rather Atlantic-driven, but it does have this area of higher pressure to our northeast. I think that does contain some cold weather in 1886, 1887. 1891, 1892 is our next winter, following England and Wales precipitation range of 65 to 72 millimetres. This one, again, is rather mild winter, plenty of low pressure over the UK and Western Europe. It does have quite a bit of blocking, but generally the blocking isn't in a particularly conducive position to bring all that much in the way of cold weather to us. I think it does have some colder interludes, but overall not a particularly cold winter. They have quite a long gap through to 1908, 1909. Now, this is quite a cold winter in the first decade of the 20th century. So this one with above average heights to our north and also to our northeast. Quite an easterly winter, this one with lower pressure to our south. It's not spectacularly cold, but it does have regular cold and snowy episodes in the winter of 1908, 1909. Then we have a winter of 1913, 1914, so this is just a rather mild winter, really, with above average heights to our east and below average heights to our west. So, you know, it's quite a mild winter, that one, 1913, 1914. It's another mild winter. This is 1920, 1921. This again rather anticyclonic with plenty of high pressure across Western and Northern Europe. So again, this is rather dry and mild winter. 1920, 1921. 1934, 1935 is our next winter. Now, this is quite a cold winter across many parts of Europe. I don't think it's particularly cold for us in the UK, and for Ireland it's relatively mild winter with a few colder outbreaks. But I think for many parts of, like, Central Europe, for example, it is quite a cold winter in 1934, 1935. 1942, 1943 shows up next. This one is another rather milder winter too, with low pressure to the north and high pressure to the south, and winds in off the Atlantic, a rather westerly Atlantic driven with winter. It brings to an end, like the trilogy of very cold winters that we have in the early 1940s. There's three of them from 1939, 1940 through to 1941, 1942. And then this one brings that run of very cold winters to an end. And this is a milder winter in the middle of the Second World War. A long gap then through to 1963, 1964. This is just a rather dry anticyclonic sort of winter. It is a bit on the chilly side, but of course it's very, very overshadowed by the winter before it, which was 62, 63, the daddy of cold winters. So this one, you know, it's just rather anticyclonic and pretty dry and rather banal sort of winter, which is, I suppose, what everybody needed after what happened the winter before it. We've got 1970, 1971 showing up next, following England Wales precipitation range of 65 to 72 millimeters. This one, this was colder early on. So this is a front-loaded winter, which means it has cold weather earlier on. It does have a white Christmas, easterly winds and snow during Christmas 1970, and then it gets milder through January and February of 1971. Overall, a rather anticyclonic winter, and despite the anticyclone Jerry being sent to our north, that's down to what happens in December. Otherwise, it's a relatively mild winter, actually. Another long gap then through to 1987, 1988. This is a very mild and also wet winter. Lots of low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. This one very much brings to an end the cold winters of the 1980s. You know, we remember the 1980s as a cold decade indeed. Was a cold decade again. It was a trilogy of cold winters from 84, 85 to 86, 87. That trilogy is very, very much brought to an end by 87, 88, and then we have a trilogy of very mild winters from 87, 88 through to 89, 90. Three very mild winters at the end of the decade, and that's the first one of those, which is a very mild but also quite wet winter in 1987, 1988. Just one winter on, we go through to 1988, 1989, again, following September, England Wales precipitation of 65, 72 millimeters. This one, again, is another very mild winter, exceptionally so, really, but this was a drier winter. Lots of low pressure to the north, but also with this big area of high pressure sitting just to our south and winds in from the west or southwesterly directions. So we have two of the three very mild winters at the end of the 1980s showing up in this package of analogues. Another long gap then through to 2005, 2006. So the next time we have England Wales precipitation range of 65, 72 millimeters is in September 2005. Now this looks like it should be cold winter. It's showing up quite a lot in our winter updates at the moment. So I think it's one of the leading years right now, and it looks like it should be a cold winter. It looks like it should be really drawing in the wind from a long way east, and should be a very blocked, snowy, cold winter. Actually, it was not. It was generally a pretty boring, nondescript sort of winter. Not much going on. Very dull, I think, through much of the winter. Rather mild for long stretches as well. Few colder interludes here and there. So there is a cold snap between Christmas and New Year of 2005. And then it gets more generally colder late on, so second half of February and into the first half of March, have like a 3 to 4 week run of genuinely quite cold weather then, very late on in the winter. Otherwise, it's one of those winters, but despite the analogue, which does look very conducive to be a cold winter, despite that analogue, you know, it just doesn't come together, which sometimes the winters do not. And they've got 2016, 2017 showing up next. So this one, of course, featured last week as well for the CET. So this is a very important player in terms of the September that we've just experienced. This one, 2016, 2017, is a dry and mild winter again with lots. So I think that's a little bit of a theme as we go through this. We'll confirm that in a moment, but I think that is a little bit of a theme as we go through these winters. A lot of them do seem to be dry and mild, following this September England Wales precipitation range. This one is another one of those dry, mild, boring sort of winter in 2016, 2017. And then we've got 2018, 2019, again, following that England Wales precipitation range. And again, this one is a relatively dry but also quite mild winter with lots of high pressure covering western parts of Europe. It does have like a cold snap in January of 2019, but not particularly severe, not all that much snow associated with that, and otherwise the rest of it, rest of 2018, 2019 is generally quite a mild winter really, but also reasonably dry. Right, so let's start putting all of that together then. This is how all Decembers combined are looking following September England Wales precipitation range of 65, 72 millimeters, an anticyclonic signal for these Decembers overall, with above average heights through the UK and going up towards Scandinavia. Maybe hints of a little bit of an easterly type flow coming in with that. So you could envisage that sometimes at least we would, you know, get some easterly winds from that. But the main thing I think is just that it's anticyclonic signal quite strong for December. All January's combined look like this, so still sort of signaling a Scandinavian high, but also deepening low pressure around Greenland and Iceland. So a little bit of a battleground type month, really. But low pressure around Greenland and Iceland will try to bring in westerlies, because Scandinavian high will try to bring in easterlies. So, you know, a little bit poised, I suspect, with the Januaries, but probably on average overall tending to be milder and wetter, I would have thought. And then we go through to all February's combined, and we look like that. So a little bit anticyclonic, high pressure, sort of sat over UK and Ireland. Lots of low pressure around Greenland, Iceland, jet streams up there. So generally quite dryish, mildish signal for the February's. All winters combined, following September, England, Wales, precipitation range 65, 72 millimeters. Looks like that. So overall, it does have like a high pressure influence over Scandinavia as well. That's particularly down to what happens in the Decembers, and then the rest of it, you know, generally just mild, really, I think. And if we narrow things down, just look at years after 1950, does make quite a significant difference, actually. So this is all Decembers combined, following September, England, Wales, precipitation range of 65, 72 millimeters post 1950, more relevant for modern climate. So still an anticyclonic signal, but you see high pressure is more or less centred over the UK and Ireland, so dry and mild with those December. Of course, there could be frost and fog, but overall that is a mild ridge. It's not sort of northern blocking. All January's combined, post 1950. Again, it's an anticyclonic signal, so a dry sort of winter is being favoured here, at least for December and January. Maybe a little bit more of an easterly influence could allow for some colder interludes at times, but overall, again, it is not a particularly cold signal, I would have thought. And then all February's combined, still having the above average heights, generally favoured for northern and western parts of Europe, so relatively dry and still reasonably mild, I think, is the overall signal there. And then finally, all winters combined, following September, England, Wales, precipitation range of 65, 72 millimeters, looks like that. And again, it's a dry, mild signal for these winters, with the above average heights right over the top of UK, Ireland, and also western parts of Europe. Very dry winter favour. Right, okay, so that's September data done and dusted. I think you'll agree that between this week's update and last week's fifth update, September has not been the best month if you want a cold winter. Between the temperature and rainfall data, I think you will agree. I think this week's is not as bad as last week's, you know, but this week is kind of, you know, there's a little bit more to play with this week than we had last week. We had nothing whatsoever to play with from a cold perspective last week. But even having said that, even this week is not brilliant from a cold perspective. So if you want a cold winter, I would, you know, write off September, really. I'll put September down as being a bit of a write-off, and we shall wait and see what the rest of our analogues have in store. But that's September data done and dusted in terms of the winter updates. Right, so I'm going to tell you that next. So that's like the 6th winter update finished now. That's complete in 2 parts. We're moving on to 7th update. I'm going to tell you that next week's 7th update, or this coming week's 7th update, is going to be our solar special. So we will bring an update of all the solar trackers and what's going on with solar cycle number 25. And of course, we'll have solar analogues in part 2 of the 7th winter update as well. So the 7th update is always like the solar special. It marks halfway point of the of winter updates. It's the point where we start getting, you know, serious, and we begin to think about all of the teleconnection type drivers in terms of QBO and ENSO and all of those kind of things, you know, that we start to present in the second half of the winter updates. So the halfway point is always a pivotal moment, and it's always marked, you know, with the solar special. So we'll be doing the solar special for the 7th winter update, parts 1 and 2, Sunday and Monday, and it's going to be great. It's going to be very, very interesting. So I shall hopefully see you for those, you know, in the comments and when we upload them. So that's all for the 6th update, though. So yeah, thank you so much for watching parts 1 and parts 2 of the 6th winter 2021-2022 update. Thank you so much to Richard and to Shrine for all the help on this update. And for the 6th winter 2021-2022 update in 2 parts, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.